Hey, now it's the Bergie and Booker show. He's Bergie, I'm Booker. We do what we do. We do it pretty well. Lots to talk about today. We'll get to the NCAA lacrosse playoffs. We'll also talk a little bit about parenting, club lacrosse, showcase events. You talk about showcases, and I know your kids are into them and have been a part of them in the past. But I just had the good fortune of working in the Baltimore underclass All-American girls tryout, the New Balance event, formerly Under Armour. Now New Balance has a great idea of what they want to do. They see it for what it can become, and New Balance is awesome. The Baltimore girls talent level was insane to this effect. There were so many good girls there that many of them were talking with the sense that they might not actually make the team, that they were going to go try out for, and they intend to play for another region because they want to be a part of the event so badly. So it's a nice feather in the cap of New Balance for recognizing what a lacrosse thing can really become, and for the organizers to do such a nice job that parents always try to focus on their kid having a good experience at the All-American Underclass tryout.
That's fantastic. So that's the current seniors, or is that the current
rising? So there's rising seniors. These girls are juniors.
Yep.
And the commit list on just that team for the rising seniors: Maryland, Carolina, Michigan, Syracuse, Northwestern, Boston College, Clemson, couple Florida, back to Maryland, back to Loyola in Baltimore, Loyola of Maryland, they like to call it. A lot of Terps, a lot of Big Tens, a lot of Penn States. And some of those girls are going to actually not make the Baltimore team, and they're going to end up playing in the event for another region because they love the experience they get. And they think it's going to help them become the best lacrosse player they can be, and also the best version of themselves on and off the field. Great talent, great girls.
I haven't heard a lot of many of those schools' names, so
yeah.
So
Big Ten, Bergie, yeah, Virginia. I know that they're a Big Ten school.
No. That's awesome. That makes for a great event. And then they go home and they tell their friends, and the parents talk at the next tournament in the fall and say, "What a great event! What a great situation! Yep. We had a great experience. Sally made the team. Sally didn't
Sally got cut.
Yeah, or Sally didn't make the team, and let me tell you why Sally didn't make the team, because Julie and Stephanie and everybody else was better than that weekend, and that's the way it happens. That's the way it should happen. Well, that's good, and I know those are kind of roving through the countryside here over the next couple of weeks, and coming down into. I know you'll be doing a Florida one, and I know you're doing some other ones. So that's exciting for those rising seniors and the rising. Now, I know the boys do rising juniors, rising seniors, and then a combo
rising freshmen, rising
sophomores, just sort of combo, get the team. You probably get a better result, especially on the back end of the rising freshmen being teamed up with some rising sophomores. Is the girls broken down that way as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's and that's one of the things that New Balance said was, hey, let's give the rising juniors their own team, because it used to be 2 divisions. Now it's 3.
Yeah.
And, part of that was Lee Corrigan, who started the whole thing and dreamt it all up, was he wanted to give those juniors a chance. He created the Spotlight division. It was unbelievably popular. So he just said, let's just do rising juniors on their own team. Rising seniors, they have their own team. And then the command is the younger group. They have 2 squads. It's a simple tryout process. A lot of drills for the first 45 minutes, and then you play games. So you get evaluated in every aspect of how you can help a team compete to win the tournament, because they're not picking a newspaper all-star team. If you have 65 goals, they don't say, "Oh, great, you're on the team. We'll just add another attack spot."
Yeah.
Now there are 21 kids on the team, and they're fabulous at the sport of lacrosse.
And then they will compete at the end of July. Is that when that tournament is? Okay. And really, it's kind of at the end of everybody's club season anyway. So it's a bonus, right? Pretty much. I mean, you get there, you practice for a day or 2 with your teammates after you've made the team, and then you play the games.
The one thing that there's some regions that tend to show up in the championship games quite frequently.
Yeah.
And, the West has won it before. The Southwest has made the semifinals. We've had the widespread regions succeed.
Am I going to hear they've practiced a little bit more than some of the other
Yes,
regions?
you are. Yes, you actually picked it. Yeah. I did the Baltimore boys team one year, and we had 3 practices before 2 weeks before the event. So that definitely helps. The closer, tighter regions like Philly, they always have a couple practices. Jersey, they find a way. And it's the premier showcase and the premier tournament of the summer. And everybody who's experienced in lacrosse and has gone through it, they'll tell you, I want to be a part of that.
And it's cool because they play with and against the guys that are going to be on that team probably regionally speaking all summer in their tournaments. So maybe a kid beats you and you're like, well, yeah, but Dad, I'm playing, Mom, I'm playing. He's on my team. That kid's good. He's on my New Balance team at the end of this month. So they kind of get a mutual respect for everybody.
Sure. And you've heard me say this before, and our viewers, please put in the comments your thoughts on it. But a lot of high school lacrosse players have a dream of playing in the All-American senior game. It was the Under Armour game. Now it's the New Balance All-American senior game. A lot of players have that dream. And the best way to get on the radar for that event is to be a part of the underclass event. Try out for a team. I can tell you a story of a kid, tried out for Baltimore, got cut, drove down 2 days later, tried out for DC. Last kid cut as a rising senior. Had a great senior year and got selected to play in the senior game because he was really good. He just didn't happen to make those teams a year earlier. And lo and behold, he went on to do great stuff at the college level as well. You look at the Tewaaraton list, it's a who's who of the All-American senior game players.
Like McDonald's All-American in basketball.
Yes.
I mean, or, the Army football game that's played every year that's East versus West. I mean,
yep.
You look at those lineups and they play that all-star game on, that football game in early January. And it used to be all the guys were committed to this school and that. Now it's turned into a little bit of a circus for some of the guys to put their hats on and committing, between the first and the second quarter. But even still, there's a hell of a lot of good football players in there.
Oh, yeah.
I coached a kid one year in Reading, Pennsylvania, who played in the game and got run over by, he was a heck of a player, but got run over by Adrian Peterson. And, he kind of disappeared. No one ever heard of him after his high school season.
Yeah, right.
But a lot of big time guys play McDonald's. I grew up loving basketball. So, when the McDonald's All-American list came out every year, you paid attention to who was on that because those were the kids that were, back then that were going to be, sort of stars in college. Now, they go right to the pros, lots of them. But
and it's funny you brought up the part about the hat because I'm actually wearing the hat of the SEC school that I'm committed to play football.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, it looks good.
The older
I should be a real success there. University of Phoenix, I think, is my true calling if I was going to play college football. Let's talk about college.
Yeah.
Brother, Big Ten Bergie.
I got 3 in.
Your Big Ten did okay.
I got 3 of 8. And Maryland doesn't get in, okay? And Ohio State doesn't get in. They're not even in the thing. But 3 are in without Maryland. Who would have thought that?
I know.
Who would have thought
Maryland,
that?
they had an up and down and for them, obviously, the prior 2 seasons, they lost 1 game total. And they had a shot to tie at the end.
They got freshmen all over the place. The Army depot makes the play of the game. Erks is going to score because he scores every time he's that close in there. He's going to tie it up. The Army, listen, I got no problem losing to the Naval Academy and losing to West Point in a game like that. Don't hate on either one of those schools. Great kids, great everything. I have a friend who's friends with number 4 from West Point's dad. He was texting me before the game. That kid put on a show, and he's got a brother who won the state championship in Roswell, Georgia that same night. And he's committed to West Point, and he's like the 32nd recruit in the country. So West Point on the boys and the girls side is building something. And you're never going to hear Big Ten Bergie badmouth West Point or the Naval Academy. They played great. I mean, good for Michigan. Keep rolling. We talked about it last week. I said, I'm picking Cornell, but I really want Michigan to win. And they did, and it was a hell of a win for Michigan. And, And I'll give Penn State credit. I mean, they were down big, and it's May, which it's very easy for them to say, we never win this game, and they're down big. And they got a guy who has 11 goals in his lifetime at Penn State. He had 5 goals last night. I mean,
nothing wrong with it.
No, that kid's going to know that forever. Everybody who knows him. And Hopkins has a walk. I mean, we said Hopkins is going to either, they've played some good games. They've played some bad games, but let's go. I mean, what about UVA? Was there any weather at the UVA game? I didn't hear anybody.
I didn't hear him talk about it.
Yeah,
I didn't hear him. No, that was, I was driving from Sarasota to Baltimore all day Saturday. It was a great drive, very pleasant, a lot of phone calls, a lot of catching up with folks. And also had the lacrosse kind of playing, and it was there. Evidently, the field was wet.
Yeah, you couldn't tell by just looking at the field. The announcers had to continue to remind you that it was wet. Yeah. The heads up was the pond in the middle of the goal, that it was wet. Yeah. I actually thought I saw a duck land in the middle of one of the plays, but that screwed up the line for sure. I'm not counting that as Richmond not counting.
Right. So the other thing that I kind of thought was creative, and I didn't have this on my broadcast bingo card, but they kept saying that this weather is really affecting UVA and their athleticism. Well, was Richmond playing on a dry field? I didn't understand how the weather could only affect one of the two teams.
Yeah,
I found that a little confounding.
Yeah, if anything, it might have helped UVA. I would have thought it helped UVA come down to Richmond's level maybe a little bit, but obviously they stayed on the same level. UVA won, and we'll talk about this in a minute because UVA wins in a walk, covers, crushes them. Notre Dame covers and crushes them. Okay,
and you called that one.
Yeah, I mean, we said they were gonna kill them. They could have scored 30, like you said. They scored 20. They could have scored, and Hopkins crushes Bryant. I mean, this is an example of, yes, Utah deserved to be in because of the rules. Bryant deserved to be in because of the rules, and Richmond deserved to be in because of the rules. But we can name at least 12 teams that would have beaten them this weekend as well. Right. If we go
Penn probably would have beaten Utah or Bryant. I don't know about Richmond would have given them a pretty, who knows? Apparently the Richmond game was very rainy, I heard.
Yeah. How'd the Ivy League do this weekend, Booker?
Oh, the Ivy League did not have a great weekend. And first and foremost, I was pulling for Cornell. Not that I have anything against your Big Ten Michigan Wolverines, but Connor Busick, the head coach at Cornell, could not be a nicer guy. And I say it every time. Lacrosse is blessed with some great people who are involved with the sport. And he is certainly one of them. So I felt a little bit down when Cornell got bounced. Plus, some of my dear friends in the world are Cornell lacrosse lovers. And, of course, the great Richie Moran. Oh.
So I pride myself on kind of holding grudges. and I'm still pissed off at how many Ivy League teams got in last year and didn't deserve to be.
Yeah.
So I was a little happy that only 3 got in this year, and I was even more happy that none of them advanced. So, this isn't, I'm not breaking any news. Men's college lacrosse and probably women's, I don't know for sure because there's so many more teams and so much. Men's college lacrosse is owned by now and will be owned for the next foreseeable 5 to 10 years by the Big Ten and the ACC. Top to bottom. I mean, Michigan just proved it. Maryland's going to be back. Going to be back. Oh my God, they didn't get very far for the first time in 100 years. I mean, they've been in the tournament for 33 straight years or something like that. But Michigan's proving the Big Ten is there. Penn State with the big win is proving that they're there, and they've been there off and on. I think he's been to 3 or 4 tournaments in his 7 or 8 years, or maybe he's been there 10 years now. Maybe he's been to 3 or 4 tournaments. Rutgers is not going to be down long. I mean, if I told you at the beginning of the season the Big Ten was going to have 3 teams in the final 8, you would have said Maryland and you would have said Rutgers, okay? And you probably, knowing you would have said Johns Hopkins.
No.
See what I did there for you?
Yeah, you did. I saw that. I saw that.
But you at least would have said Maryland and Rutgers. Well, neither one of them are in. All right. And it's Michigan and it's Penn State and it's Hopkins. So, okay. So Ivy League doesn't get in. What about Georgetown? Did you watch that game?
That was truth be told, and I'd love to hear some comments about this. I was driving the entire way from Sarasota to Baltimore, getting involved in Harry's Basement card game, by the way. And I had the Georgetown Yale game like on my dash, like where the speedometer is, not up on top of the dashboard,
Careful.
but on
Don't tell anybody you're not a safe driver.
I am a totally safe driver, and I was driving slowly, but I was watching. That was a knockdown, drag out slugfest. That was a sick game. Great game.
Great game. I thought they'd kill him. They still covered. But it was an absolute great game with two lacrosse teams that I don't really at the end of the day was just rooting against the Ivy League, and rooting for our pick for Georgetown. But I mean, I don't have anything vested in either team. I thought it was a fantastic game.
It was. So let me ask you this. If you could take the Penn State Army game that's coming up on Sunday and say, you know what? I'm going to rewatch the Georgetown Yale game. Which would you do? Or would you take the Duke Delaware was kind of enthralling, Michigan Cornell? Would you rewatch one of these games, or would you just want to see what's next?
I want to see what's next.
Okay.
I know what happened. Listen, the Delaware game against Duke, that was a hell of a game. And give that coach credit. Last year, knocking Georgetown out, destroying Marist, hanging with Duke. And you kind of got the feeling after the game that Duke felt like, wow, we got out of it, luckily.
Survived.
Now, in the NCAA men's basketball tournament, you got to win 6 games. And every team has a game they should have lost. Every time someone wins a national championship in basketball, they have a game they should have lost. I'm wondering if that's the game they should have lost, and they kind of, cartoon guy shakes his head and figures out what the hell's going on, and then hits it from there. Penn, like I said, Penn State, that's a nice win for them. I don't know.
Comeback.
I don't know if I'm going to have them beating Army next week. I really don't. I don't know if Army. I mean, they played with a lot of confidence. Now, they were picking on a bunch of freshmen and a bunch of sophomores at Maryland, and at one point, Weirman couldn't really win some faceoffs, which is uncharacteristic. And Rupel showed his freshman-ness, so to speak, in the last 2 games. But he held up well. We'll make our predictions on that later. But now we got 2 games on Saturday and 2 games on Sunday. The schedule is, you got noon on Saturday, get Georgetown and UVA again. So UVA gets the first game again.
Yep.
And then you got Duke and Michigan. I believe those should be 2 must-see games. I think the Duke Michigan game, Michigan's not going down without a fight. They're not. We'll make a prediction on Friday. That's a +3 to Michigan. And UVA's, so Michigan's getting 3. Georgetown, I think, is getting 3.5.
So quick backpedal by me, because my sister is one of the greatest, smartest people I know. She went to Richmond, and her youngest daughter is a student at UVA. My sister Kelly's husband went to Yale, and their oldest daughter went to Georgetown. So it was like their teams played each other, and the daughters won both games.
Yeah.
So the kids are at Georgetown and Virginia, and the old folks are at Richmond and Yale, and the daughters pulled it out. So Georgia and Claire advance, and Arkansas Ed and my sister Kelly are now set for the postseason.
There you go. They're playing golf.
So Sunday, we've already talked about Penn State Army. I like Army in that game. I love Jeff Tambroni. I love Joe Alberici. I can't lose in that one. And then ND Johns Hopkins, I got to tell you, exactly where we are there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a boat race. That's going to be the boat race game of the weekend. I think Notre Dame's going to kill them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. Notre Dame's pissed off. And they carried that ship, and they won that first. They The only reason they didn't beat Utah by more is because they probably didn't care enough to beat them by more and have bigger and better things and ambitions. And Utah hasn't done anything to piss them off. They probably played them. I don't even know how many times they've played Utah. 2 times in history ever. It's not like, Notre Dame and Utah aren't going after the same kid. I mean, it's just there's no animosity there. They're just not. But Notre Dame and Hopkins, I think every step Notre Dame's going to get a little bit more pissed off, and I think Notre Dame will probably. I think that'll be the boat race of the weekend. I think Notre Dame kills them, gets into that Final Four, and
Interesting. Okay.
I really do. I think. I mean, Hopkins is getting 4.5, so even the gamblers are thinking that I know what the hell I'm talking about there.
And I will also say, Penn State Army is basically a pick 'em. We both kind of like Army. I just like Penn State. I have a lot of friends of mine who went to Penn State, or obviously being a Philly guy, so do you. You lived up there for a while.
Yep.
UVA Georgetown will be 21-20. And you know who wins that game?
It's a team with 21.
Yes, they do.
Not going to get me on that twice.
Yes, they do. And then Duke, Michigan. I got to tell you what, if you want to talk about a horizon job, as they say in the boat racing world, I think Duke is at 19 before Michigan's at 9.
Yeah, my only thing is I after watching Michigan now, I wouldn't bet against them. I wouldn't bet against them. I think it's going to be one of those classic football game type things where you're going into it on Saturday morning. You say, "How's your team going to do?" Our team's going to win a close one, or we're going to get the shit kicked out of us.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that happens all the time in football. It's like if a couple things go right early and we get some confidence, and we're going to hang with these guys, and when it comes down to it, we have nothing to lose, and their team's going to kind of crap their pants, and we're going to get the W. Happens a lot in football.
Yeah, Appalachian State.
And now I think Michigan's going to be like, okay, we're here, we're ready. We've beaten Maryland twice. We've beaten this, we've done that. And if Duke comes out and does what Duke can do, and next thing you know, it is 11-4, then I think it's going to be, it's human nature. It's going to be what a hell of a season, what a hell of a ride. But Duke is destined to get into this thing. So that we'll. It was exciting. I mean, it was great to have it. I wish there were 20 teams. I wish we had one more round somewhere last week. I think they're going to have to get to that, because there's no reason for, like we said, for Marist to get the crap kicked out of them by Delaware. And there's no reason for Utah to get the crap kicked out of them. They could have played each other or figured out some way to do it.
Anyway,
go ahead.
Let's get our viewers, put some comments in the comment section of where you think where your predictions might be. We can use that for the show on Friday. But the other thing is, wrapping back around to those showcase events, that parenting opportunity, that coaching opportunity, helping kids become the best version of themselves and teaching them. And my children are so tired of hearing me say, you have to be able to prove that you know the difference between right and wrong, and you have to be able to do it every day. The way you leave a lunch table, the way you walk into chemistry class, the way you help a friend when they're a little bit down, and how you carry yourself and behave yourself on a Saturday night. Those are the 4 measurables of knowing the difference between right and wrong.
So I had a really neat experience this weekend. Duke's in the middle of spring football, but they gave him the weekend off. Not him. The whole team had the weekend off. And so he had his weekend camp for his FLC program. So they went up there, and the 26s and the 25s and the 24s all had a camp. And we went up to Berkeley Prep, great facility. And they took the 26 team, and there's 2 teams in every age group. And it's an A and a B team. They call it a national and a state, but it's an A and a B team.
Right.
The national team plays the big events all summer. The state team does not. The state team plays local events all summer and plays local, and they all play the same events in the fall because everybody comes down here.
Right.
So they can play in an A division or a B division or a B division or a C division. But so they took the 24s and the 25s over to one side of their stadium. And then we had the 26s on one half of just a beautiful facility. And the national team went down here and practiced, and the state team went down here. And on Saturday, it was 3 hours of intense. They didn't waste a lot of time on drills. These kids have all just gotten out of their high school seasons.
Right.
They're all freshmen. So here's what happened. The kids either didn't play a ton because they're on really good teams, okay, and their teams went deep into the playoffs and they were freshmen. The one goalie played a lot because he's a star and he was the team. Or the kids played a ton and had 40 goals or 40 points and their teams were horrible. So it was a good way for the kids that have been playing with crappy teams and losing games to be with some winning players and vice versa. But what was really, really kind of cool about it is after a high school season that was, let's just say the coaches, to say they were absent would be an understatement. And to say they held the kids accountable would certainly be an understatement. And that'll fix itself. But to be at a practice that was well run and well prepared and watch the kids broken down on Friday, here's what the periods are. And here's what we're going to do. From these 20 minutes, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing that. And to have the coaches actually engage the kids and hold them up to a standard of like stopping a thing. This is where you have to do, and this is where it was so good because I'm a stickler for kids want direction. Kids want to be coached. Kids want to be screamed at, okay, when they do something good and when they do something bad. Kid doesn't mind being told, you got to make that catch. If when he does make a great catch or a great pass, you say, nice play. Or they don't need to be hugged every play. But if you're going to rip kids apart, you gotta build them up. So I saw that this weekend, and it was a lot of fun. Gave me a lot of positive energy on a parent side of what's to come in the summer tournaments up there. And it made me think to as you go through club, it's no longer high school. So here I am with the girls team and the boys teams, and I've had this conversation with some of my friends. Playing time, because the club teams are, everybody's check clears. So if your check clears, as you've coached it, okay. You didn't play club because they didn't have club back then in Bedrock, but you've coached it. We've been lucky enough. Let's just say that. I mean, they put in their work, so I'm not going to say it's all luck. Our kids play, so I'm usually not in the stance of being one of the parents that's pissed off. But where are you with these coaches and these teams when everybody pays the same amount? And what about equal playing time and trying to win a game? And how would you as a coach approach that from a team standpoint? I know how I would do it. How would you address the parents and the players from a coaching standpoint of certain tournaments and certain games are going to be tougher than others?
I got to tell you, I think in club, you got to coach them in practice. And that's the other thing. A lot of these club teams, when they do practice, they just go out there and scrimmage or whatever. When I had my club team, we had a practice plan. We had things that we knew we needed to work on and improve. And then when you show me that improvement, your playing time goes up. Yeah. But I played every kid in every game. And I was telling you before we came on in preps for the show, I told you I lost my compass once. And it's something that stuck with me, and it'll stay with me forever because we were playing in a championship game. So it's a bonus game that we earned the right to be in. And I can honestly tell you, it's two assistant coaches who I love to this day, great people. But they came to me and they're like, you can't let this kid play and you can't let this kid play. And I know the two kids. Like, I know they're not as good as the rest of them, but come on. They're like, no, this is a bonus game. They have no right to, they should have been cut from the team before the season even started. And I lost my way a little bit, and I did not play those kids in the championship game. Whether we won or not lost is irrelevant, but the fact that I lost my true bearings, I could get them 2 or 3 minutes. I could get them a minute and a half here, a minute and a half there, go out. And it really stuck with me as I let myself get talked into something that I was just talking about, the difference between right and wrong. I let myself get talked into something that was wrong. And I learned a great lesson from it. So I'm a better coach now than I was. But on playing time, if you're attending practice, if you're working hard and you're improving and you're coachable and you got good body language, I'm putting you in the game. You're in the game.
So I look at things, and I will tell you, I'll give myself credit. I look at things two ways. I always look at things from a player,
yep,
who was good in some things and then not so good in other things. And I look at it as a guy who's coached a lot, and then I look at it as a parent. And the key to me is, if the coach is like, the old line is, I don't treat everybody equally, but I treat everybody fairly. Okay. And I've always tried to be that guy when I coach. So if you're going into a club game and you're going to win, start the kid that might not start. And if Jimmy, the attackman, whose dad films everything and has to have every stat and has to put everything in, has a problem with it, then that says more about Jimmy and his dad than it does about you. So just tell Jimmy to shut the F up. I'm serious about that, because I've seen this where a kid plays every minute of a game, and then the first tournament, the next game, the kid's not playing. Now, I would tell the kid, hey, listen, we've got 2 games of these 5 that we're easily going to win before we bracket.
Right.
So, no one keeps stats on Club Lacrosse. So if you sit a lot this game, it's because you play a ton in the other games. So that's how I would address stuff. I would also address stuff by practice. Depending on the age of the kid, can he drive himself? Because if he can drive himself, is he getting there on time? If he can't drive himself, then you got to say to mom and dad, why is he late all the time?
Yeah.
Or is he working hard? Like we've talked about this before. Give the kid reasons why he's not playing. And if the bottom line is the kid is not very good, but you got to round out your 18 to 22 man roster. I have had this conversation with 4th and 5th grade basketball when we were in South Carolina. I was the 5th grade basketball coach. Duke made the team as a 4th grader, and the basketball coach and I spoke, and he said, we always put 2 kids on that are borderline because we want their dads to be involved, so that next year their dads will coach as 5th graders and sort of, pay it forward, so to speak. So I took it upon myself a number of years ago when I was coaching. I did the same when I was the girls basketball coach at the grade school. I called up the kids that made the team. And then I called up the 4th grade kids, and I said to the parents, I said, are you okay with the fact that little Jimmy is probably not going to play a whole lot? But I'm not going to take 1 4th grader. I'm going to take 2, because I don't want to leave 1 kid at the end of the bench. But your kid is a great worker, and he's practicing his butt off. Are you okay with it? Is he okay with understanding that we're taking 10 kids and we're probably going to play 6 or 7 on a regular basis? And I promise you, I will get you in when I can. Is he okay with it? And I did that one year, and I had one parent say, thank you for saying that. And they knew their kid enough to say, I don't think he'll handle that well. So I appreciate it. And then I had another parent say, absolutely. He's got an older brother. He just wants to be part of the team, coach. Thank you so much.
Right.
And then another kid who said, yeah. So if you're at the back end of a roster and a club coach says to you, because most of the good clubs have an A and a B team, especially up in Maryland and Pennsylvania. If your club coach comes to you and says, hey, listen, we're going to play him as much as we can, but he's on the back end of the 22 man roster. But you also have the opportunity to be on the blue team or the red team or whatever the colors.
Right. The B team.
Yeah. As long as somebody tells the player and the parent that, I don't think you have a right to be pissed off 2 tournaments in if he's not playing a lot. You had an opportunity to be on the B team, right?
Yes. It's very true.
It's who you want to practice with. Now, if you don't hold up your end of the bargain, and, like we had a high school game this year, the very first high school varsity game, he told a bunch of kids that they were going to play in the blowout games, and they won 18-1, and a whole bunch of kids that they said were going to play in the blowout games didn't get in. And then the next 4 games were tight games. The parent has a reason to be upset, but
right.
I want to know how parents feel about that, because I think honesty is the best policy when it comes to playing time.
Oh, of course. And we all have, so as a coach, we have kids who, this was actually at a school I was coaching against up here. I was coaching at McDonough, and this kid was at Gilman. and they had 4 goalies on the varsity. And this kid was a sophomore. He could have played fresh soft. He could have played JV. The coach came to him and said, you can be the 5th goalie on varsity, or you'll be the starter on JV. He asked the kid this, and the kid said, I want to be on varsity. His career, literally, didn't get shots, didn't get action, didn't get time. He was the 5th goalie. You can't get 5 goalies in practice. You can't even warm them all up.
And that leads me to another thing. I understand club teams need to have to take 2 goalies, and I don't have a goalie son or a goalie daughter. So it's easy for me to say this. I have a lot of friends with goalies, including you, goalie children. When a club takes 2 goalies, why is it mandatory that they split time evenly?
Because they're usually equal enough where it just makes sense.
Because I kind of come from if a goalie's hot, why are you pulling him? Again, not the end of the world. Duke's in 9th grade going into 10th. We've lost some 7th grade lacrosse games, some 8th grade lacrosse games, because the one goalie, we were up 5-2 at halftime, and then we come in and we lose, 12-8 because the next goalie just wasn't as good. And again, not the end of the world, 7th, 8th grade or 5th grade or 6th grade. But the goalie situation seems odd to me that you have to take 2. Now I get it. Kid gets hurt.
You have to take 2.
You have to take 2. But is it just completely against the rules to say you're an A and a B goalie? Is that it just the way it doesn't happen?
I mean, in high school varsity, we had a starting goalie and a backup. If we had 2, we were very lucky. But in club, I think for the most of the part, we split time. I did. My son said to say hello, by the way. I did have an experience with my son where I was coaching. He was in the first half, and he wasn't seeing the ball well, and I yanked him. And he came over, and he came over to me. He looked at me a little side-eyed at first, and then he kind of admitted, he was like, I really wasn't on. I wasn't on at all. I'm like, all right. And then he went like this. He did the frog, which I guess is the big thing these days. So,
I've coached our kids a lot in a lot of sports, and our kids are used to getting yelled at. Our kids are used to being told, and I mean yelled. I don't mean like just berated.
Right, berated.
But I mean, our kids don't mind getting yelled at, and they know they're going to hear it. And I got 2 funny stories to tell you about, and I could tell you stories about all of our kids, but I got 2 funny stories specifically about Duke. Okay, so when he was little, we were playing. I was coaching basketball, and I'm not proud of this, but I'm proud of him. I'm coaching basketball, and it was at the level where the dads are coaching, but you're on the field, on the court, excuse me, and you're reffing as well, because the head coach is over there and the other head coach is here. And then if you had an assistant, they babysat on the sidelines and sort of said, hey, coach, this guy hasn't gotten in yet, or something like that. So Duke's playing awful, just completely awful. And it's like little tiny 8-foot rims, and he's playing horrible. And I know he's better than this. And he's just being a complete goof off. And I tell him 2 or 3 times he runs by me, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just nothing. So finally, he runs by me, and I grab him and I pull him, and I said, get your blanking head out of your blanking ass, or you're not going to play another minute of this game. And he looked at me, and he kind of went, and then he had an incredible game, just an incredible game the rest of the game. And after the game, because Jackie gets more upset than I do about certain things, after the game, Jackie comes over to him, and we're all, all the parents, the kids are putting their sweatpants on, everything's cold, it's State College, so it's probably 15 degrees out, it's February.
Yep.
And Jackie comes over to him and says, you were playing horrible. I saw Dad pull you aside. What did he say? And he looks up at her, and he looks up at me, and he looks back at Jackie and says, Dad just told me to play better. And I said,
well done.
I said, there's a kid.
Yeah.
Same kid, fast forward a couple years, I'm coaching him in an all-star game for lacrosse. And again, he's not playing well. And the team is not playing well. And our lacrosse team on that all-star team was way better. There was like 8 teams. So I had the 4 teams, like 2 teams that are good and 2 teams that weren't. I practiced with them. And we're losing at halftime. And I don't know what to say. We should be winning. Jackie comes down from the stands, and we're at a high school stadium. She comes down from the stands, gets on the chain link fence, and just starts staring at Duke. Doesn't say anything, just starts staring. And I look over at her, and I look at him, and he kind of looks at me and just kind of walks away. And next thing I know, he's got 4 goals, 2 assists. We win the game and everything like that. And after the game, she said, Mom doesn't have to say anything. Mom gives you the dagger look. I said, you can't pull that out very often. She says, no, I don't, but I had to there, which is getting too long stories to get back to my point that if it's your kid, but you're also hugging them up and loving them, you can yell at them when they're playing bad, and you can also congratulate them when they're doing well. And to bring it around, if a coach has that much equity with a player, especially at the high school age, coaches should be able to do that. You can't MF a kid every time he screws up. But if you use it wisely, you can get a kid and kind of straighten him out in the middle of a game.
My God, yeah.
My
God, yeah.
But you have to have some equity with the kid. The kid has to know you love him and you're there for him. And after the game, you have to be able to say to the kid, all right, well, that wasn't good, but you turned it around. Or it wasn't good, you didn't turn it around, and let's get back to work tomorrow.
One of my big phrases was, as a coach, was holler praise, whisper criticism.
Yep.
So that's a great place to end. The Bergie and Booker Show. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers, buddy.
I'll see you on Friday for another rocking episode. It should be interesting.
Yes, should be.
He's Bergie on Booker. We do what we do. We do it pretty well. I could cheers you, but I don't have anything. My water's all gone.